stories of people encountering Jesus from the Christmas narrative this month and seeing how even as an unborn child and an infant, Jesus has an impact on the people that he comes into contact with. So we started off, we looked at John the Baptist, we looked at the shepherds, and then last week we looked at Simeon. And throughout all these stories, we've seen God working through the Holy Spirit and angels to announce the arrival of a path to redemption through Jesus. Give them a second back there.
I think they're getting things settled.
Okay. So, the angel Gabriel prophesied to John's father that he would prepare a way for Jesus by preaching a message of repentance. The angels announced peace with God had arrived through a humble birth in a stable to lowly but devout shepherds who went to see Jesus for himself. I heard someone talking about the shepherds this week, and they said that the story of the shepherds is actually the opposite of Jesus' parable of the lost sheep. That in John 15, they said that in that parable, Jesus said that the shepherd leaves the 99 to go find the lost sheep. In the story of the shepherds, the lost sheep go to find Jesus, go to find the Lamb of God who would be the Savior of the world. Last week we looked at Simeon, who was promised by God to see the Messiah before he died. And he was praising God for keeping this promise to him, for allowing him to see the Savior of Israel. And then he gave a prophecy to Mary that he would cause the people in Israel to fall and to rise, and he would even be a sword through her very soul. We saw that Mary, even the mother of Jesus, struggled coming to terms with who Jesus really was and what his message was. And that brings us to today's story. So we've been in Luke all month, but today, let's open our Bibles to Matthew 2, and we're going to look at the story of the Magi. So while you're doing that, what does this nativity scene look like? There's got to be Jesus, Joseph, and Mary. It's the nativity scene. Nativity, according to Merriam-Webster, is the process or circumstances of being born. You can't have a nativity scene without a baby. Joseph and Mary have to be there because it would be kind of weird for, just having a baby laying in a manger all by himself, to seem like negligent parents or something. But sometimes there's animals. We see, we'll see donkeys and sheep in the nativity scene, which is appropriate because they were in a stable. Sometimes these nativity scenes have shepherds, which is appropriate because they came to see Jesus on the night that he was born, after hearing the announcement from the angels. But then there's the Magi, or the wise men, or the We Three Kings of Orient are. Y'all heard that song? I'm not going to sing it for you. That's all you get. No. Most people believe that everyone was there that night. Even I watched a movie called The Nativity Story. I think it had the guy that played in Star Wars. I can't remember his name. Playing Joseph. Yeah, and in the movie, like the shepherd, the baby is born, and the shepherds show up, and all of a sudden here comes the Magi, and everybody's there on the night of the birth. We see it on cards, we see it on TV shows and Christmas movies, and if you just read the narratives like I used to, you just read Matthew or you just read Luke, it can seem like that. But then it also seems like, Matthew seems to be leaving some stuff out because he doesn't talk about the shepherds. Luke seems to be leaving some stuff out because he doesn't talk about the Magi. But when you read them all together, it becomes one story. And Matthew tells a part of it, and Luke tells a part of it. So in Luke 1, you got the announcement of John's birth, you got the announcement of Jesus' birth, you've got Mary going to Elizabeth's house, and then John is born while she's there, and she goes back home. And then we go to Matthew 2, or Matthew 1. And the angel's telling Joseph, hey, Mary is carrying, she hasn't been messing around on you, she's carrying the Son of God. It's okay. You can marry her. Don't divorce her. send her away. Take her as your wife, raise his son as your own, call him Jesus. And then we go back over to Luke 2, where they go to Bethlehem. Jesus is born. The angel announces the birth to the shepherds. All the host of heaven sing, and the shepherds go to visit Jesus on the night that he was born. And then 8 days later, he goes to be circumcised. 33 days after that, they go back to the temple for Mary's purification and to present Jesus to God. And we get the story of Simeon. There was also a lady there named Anna. And then at the end of Luke 2, it says, after they had done everything according to the law, they went back home to Nazareth. And then we go back to Matthew 2, where we're going to pick up today. So all four Gospels read like this. There'll be parts of, Mark will talk about something that's not talked about in John or Luke, or each one has their focus, what they're looking at. But if we read the Gospels, all four Gospels, as one united story, it requires jumping back and forth. But then we get a bigger picture, and we get a more full picture of what the Gospel story actually is. Acts and the letters of Paul do the same thing. We see them, throughout Acts. It tells the story of Paul and his missions, and then we can see some of those same things happening in the letters that Paul wrote to the churches. So we'll look at the timeline of the Magi story today, but what we're going to focus on is what they say to King Herod, and we're going to look at the significance of the gifts that they bring to Jesus. So let's look at this story. We're in Matthew 2, beginning in verse 1. I'm going to read through verse 11. It says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. In Bethlehem in Judea, they replied, for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him. After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So let's look real quick at when and where did the Magi visit Jesus. Luke wraps up his part of the Christmas story. It's not the end of Luke 2. We get a little glimpse of Jesus at the age of 12 and at the end of Luke 2. But Luke wraps up his part of the Christmas story by talking about Anna, who's an 84-year-old widow who lives in the temple. She sees Jesus after Simeon gives his prophecy. Excuse me. And says she gave thanks and tells everybody who was looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem about Jesus. And then in Luke 39 it says, when Joseph and Mary had done everything required by the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee, to their own town of Nazareth. And the child grew and became strong, and he was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was on him. So they go back to Nazareth. There will be a story later after the Magi story where they go to Egypt. But in Luke, there's no mention of these wise men. The rest of Matthew's story says the Magi were warned in a dream not to go back to Herod and Joseph was told in a dream to take his family to Egypt. Herod ends up ordering all boys in and around the area of Bethlehem, 2 years old and younger, to be killed. So this seems like something significant enough for Luke to have included in his story if he was telling this part of the story. So here's the timeline. Joseph and Mary went home after her purification, after the events at the temple that we read last week. The Magi arrive in Jerusalem from the east after seeing a star, assuming that the king of Israel would have seen the same star and known the king of the Jews had been born. Herod was not Jewish. He was actually an Edomite whose family had converted to Judaism. He seems to have heard about a Messiah. That when they say, where's this king of the Jews? He knows to go to the priest and say, tell me more about this. But he didn't really know about Micah's prophecy in Bethlehem. Matthew says, when the Magi left Jerusalem to look for Jesus in Bethlehem, the star they'd been following went ahead of them and stopped over where Jesus was. We know this isn't the night of Jesus' birth because Matthew calls this a house and not a stable. And because Herod has all children 2 years old and younger killed, after asking the Magi, when did you see this star? We can safely assume that Jesus could have been up to 2 years old when they arrived. Now the timeline and figuring all that out is not, it's not a hill to die on. It's not, you see somebody with Magi on their nativity scene, you don't need to go call them out and tell them that they're wrong. It's fine. It's fine. Just leave it on. I personally have Magi sitting on a shelf in my shop with the nativity. It's fine. It's pretty. I want to look at 4 things today. The 4 things that are important. Who were the Magi? What was this star that they followed? What did they say to King Herod? And what is the significance of these gifts that they brought? So Matthew tells us that the Magi came from the east to Jerusalem. East of Jerusalem, in the 1st century in the Roman Empire, was not outside of the Roman Empire, was something called the Parthian Empire, which covered modern-day Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. So if you're familiar with geography, that kind of runs from a little north of Saudi Arabia and kind of over along the coast over to India. The western half of the Parthian Empire was the old Babylonian Empire, and in the 7th century BC, Israel was exiled. Babylon came in, they conquered Israel, and Israel was actually exiled to Babylon in the Old Testament. During the exile, we have the story of Daniel, the book of Daniel in the Old Testament. Daniel was placed in charge of Nebuchadnezzar's wise men. So it's believed that these Magi, these wise men that have come to seek Jesus, that have seen this star, that are coming looking for this child of prophecy, were actually descendants of the wise men that Daniel was placed in charge of, who would have brought in with him the Old Testament prophecies about the Messiah, and they would have heard these things and been looking for these things. One of these prophecies would have been Numbers 24. It says, I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star will come out of Jacob. A scepter will rise out of Israel. That's Numbers 24:17. I've heard this prophecy. Anybody else heard this prophecy during the Christmas time? I've heard this for a while now. And it's very easy to see, star, scepter, king, all that. We see this as a prophecy about Jesus. But I assumed that it was like, I never went and looked for it. I'd heard it. I didn't really go and seek, where did this prophecy come from? I assumed it was like Isaiah or Ezekiel or Micah, one of these, even Daniel, one of these prophets who had prophesied about the Messiah. And especially, even Micah, he's talking about, Jesus is going to be born in Bethlehem. There's going to be a star. Here's the whole Christmas story wrapped up in the story in the prophecy What I was surprised to find out is it comes from Numbers. So this is part of the original 5 books of the Old Testament. Moses wrote this. It came from Balaam. Now, if y'all are familiar with the story of Balaam, or if you're not, I'll tell you. Balaam was a prophet back when Israel was coming into the Promised Land. And he was not a good guy. He was not a prophet. He was not a Jewish prophet, but he was called a prophet of God. And the king of Moab sees Israel, is threatened by them, and he says, I'm going to bring in this prophet Balaam. He seems to have been a pretty popular guy, seems to be kind of famous. I'm going to bring this guy in to speak a curse over Israel so that I can defeat them. So he brings Balaam in. Balaam tries like 6 times. And he tells him that all I can do is tell you what God tells me. I can't just make this stuff up. If you want a true prophecy, it's got to come from God. He tries 6 times to say this curse over Israel. And all 6 times God says, nope, you're giving them a blessing. And it's like blessing upon blessing upon blessing. It just builds and gets better and better. This is actually out of his 4th prophecy. And I just find it interesting that this prophecy, especially the one that leads the Magi to Jerusalem, comes from a bad guy. You know, I mean, after not being able to speak a curse over him, his solution is, you know what? I can't speak a curse over him. Here's your solution: send the Moabite women in to seduce the Jewish men, and they'll lead them to paganism, and it'll just wreck everything. And it did. It made a mess of things. But this is the guy that we get this prophecy from. We hear this during Christmas from essentially the bad guy of the story. But Jacob is the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. His name is actually changed from Jacob to Israel after he wrestles with God. A scepter is a rod or a staff that symbolizes a ruler's authority over a nation. We see in Esther that nobody can come in to speak to the king unless he holds out the scepter and points to them with the scepter and acknowledges them. So the Magi would have known about the stars. They would have studied astronomy. They would have known, even back then, people knew where the position of the stars and knew how to navigate by the stars based on what time of year it was and the position of where the stars were. And so they would have recognized this is a significant celestial event that's happening. This wasn't just, there's been lots of things we'll talk about here in a minute of people trying to explain the Star of Bethlehem. But even in Genesis 1, God says that the stars, the lights in the sky, weren't just to separate night from day, but he says, let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years. These are signs. Again, we're going to use them for navigation. We're going to use them for telling times of the year, but they're also going to be used for signs. And they would have known this because Daniel would have taught them from Genesis. And so when they see a new star rising over the region of Israel, we don't know if they immediately connected it to Balaam's prophecy, or if the Holy Spirit is at work again, like he has been throughout all these stories that we have been looking at, to say, hey, there's the star. Here's the story that you're supposed to be, make this connection. But they knew that the star was significant enough to make this trip, which was somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 miles away, to go worship this new king. So what was this star? There's been, like I said, there's been lots of speculation as to what this star was. Some people have said that it's what they call a conjunction of planets. Next year we're supposed to get all the planets lined up in a row or something, and everybody's making a big deal out of it. In the 3rd century, or in 3 BC, Jupiter and Venus came close, and they would have made a bright star. I think we had this happen a few years ago, and people were calling it, hey, this could have been the Christmas star, and made a big deal out of it. But the Magi tracking the stars would have known, stars and planets would have known, hey, these two things, they've been coming together for a long time. We can predict their paths. They're going to come together, and they're going to meet. It's going to make a bright star. We've seen this before. The visible somewhere around 11 or 12 BC. And Chinese astronomers even recorded a comet in 5 BC. They called it a broom star. I guess they didn't know what a comet was. But I feel like these Babylonian astronomers who had been studying this for centuries would have probably known this is what a comet looks like. We've seen this before. We are taught about these things. You know, if it's a little bright spot, it's got a little tail coming off of it, that's a star. A guy named Johann Kepler. We actually get a thing called the Kepler belt. I can't remember where the Kepler belt is. Is that the thing that surrounds anybody here, any scientists, nerds in here?
No.
No? Okay, I tried. Anyway, he named something
Hey, Google.
in astronomy. He's a big name in astronomy. But he said, well, maybe it's a supernova. Maybe a star exploded and created this bright light in the sky. And we know that this is possible. Again, Chinese astronomers in 1054 AD saw a supernova explode. It actually created the Crab Nebula that we can still see today. So supernovas leave debris. There's evidence of a supernova. There is no evidence of a supernova that would have exploded around the time that Jesus was born in the region that would have been seen by the wise men. So all of these are attempts of explaining the supernatural with natural events, containing the Star of Bethlehem within human understanding. The honest truth is, the Bible does not tell us. The only mention of this star is in Matthew 2. But what we do know is that stars don't move. They appear to move in the sky because the earth is spinning and moving around the sun and moving through the Milky Way, but they don't move like what is described in Matthew. They don't stop over houses. So I think, and again, this is just my personal opinion from my reading of the Bible, but I think the Star of Bethlehem was the glory of God. The same glory that lit up the area around the shepherds when they came to announce the birth of Jesus. It's the same glory of God that led Israel out of Egypt as a cloud by day and a fire by night. It's the same glory that fell on Mount Sinai as Moses goes up to get the law that looked like fire in a cloud. It's the same glory that filled the temple, the tabernacle, and then the temple. This same glory that led Israel out of Egypt is now leading Gentiles to Christ. Again, that's not in the Bible. That is my reading of it, but I strongly believe that is the glory of God leading these Magi. So what do they say to King Herod? The Magi go to Jerusalem first. They probably assumed, well, if we're here to worship the King of the Jews that has just been born, probably is going to be born to the current King of the Jews. But we see that Herod hadn't had a kid. He didn't seem to know anything about this. And we also see that the star does not appear to have guided them. They just saw it, but it doesn't guide them until after they leave Jerusalem. So maybe God just needed, hey, I need you to go to Jerusalem because I need Herod to hear that the real king has been born. But they ask, where is the one who's been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. Israel didn't always have a king. They left Egypt around 1450 BC, and they were led by prophets and judges who were appointed by God. God led the people, and these prophets and priests and judges were just the spokesperson for God. About 400 years later, Samuel was the prophet who was leading them, but his sons were a mess. There was no way that they were qualified to lead, and the people saw that. And so they looked around at all the other nations who had kings, and they said, these guys, these other nations, they got this guy who is the symbol of the strength and the power of that nation. We need that. We need somebody that can go into and say, look, we've got a king. Look how powerful our king is. Look how awesome our king is. So they said, we want a king like the other nations. Samuel tries to talk them out of it, but God says, no, it's fine. Give them what they want. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. They rejected God. They did not reject Samuel. So Saul was appointed king somewhere around 1020 BC. And while it was never great, there was eventually peace and prosperity in Israel for a while. A little bit under David. They really prospered under Solomon. But then everything just went downhill. Everything just caved after that. The nation eventually split in two. They were conquered, and people just steadily grew further and further away from God because they were looking to a man to lead them and not God. After exile and returning only to be conquered again and again and again, now they live under Roman rule with a king that was just really a figurehead. He wasn't really even Jewish, and he bought his way into his position. And the Magi had come to worship the Messiah of Jewish prophecy. The king had been born in Jerusalem. Kings had been born in Jerusalem for centuries, since David introduced the Babylonian wise men to the Jewish messianic prophecies. So what was so special about this king? We hadn't had people come and worshiping other newborn kings in the past. What's so special about this king? Was it that he got a star? We don't see any other newborn kings getting a star. And again, we don't know because the Bible doesn't say. We just assume that they put prophecy together, they saw the star, and they came. All we can assume was that God was working and that these people were led. We don't even know what happened to the Magi after this. Did the Magi come to believe in Christ after seeing the star, after seeing these prophecies fulfilled? We don't know. Did they keep tabs on Jesus and hear his teachings afterwards? We don't know. But what we do know is that they had come to acknowledge him as king and to worship him as Messiah. It would have taken upwards of a year for the Magi to have gotten here. And I think that them traveling for upwards to a year or more, following a star to find a king, shows us two things. It's the effects of planting a seed. Just because Daniel is placed in charge of the wise men, Babylon doesn't follow. That we don't see Babylon coming to know Christ. Nebuchadnezzar worshiped God for a little bit, but then after that they fell back to paganism. Babylon was a pagan nation. Even during the time of Jesus, this Parthian Empire was a pagan nation. What's that?
I don't know.
Okay. Oh, is that a hearing aid? Okay. Sounded like an alarm. So we see the effects of telling people about God. We see the effects that can have. Daniel's teachings about his God, the one true God, and the coming Messiah had been passed down through generations. This has been centuries since Daniel. It had been passed down through Babylon, through the teachings of these wise men, and even after Babylon had been conquered, these teachings still held. So that when they saw the star, they acknowledged the truth of Daniel's teachings. This is also God at work in ways that we can never understand. These are pagans that God is using to point people to Jesus for over 2,000 years. The Magi, the wise men, have been a part of the Christmas story for 2,000 years. Do we see God working like this today? It's easy to see God at work in churches through believers, but what about when God uses the secular world? Do we see God at work through the secular world? Even though they may not believe in God, or they may not even acknowledge him, he's still God over everything. Even Satan. Jesus called him the prince of this world. He is still subject to God. He doesn't work without God's permission. My son's church does this the sermon series periodically where they'll do like people struggle with that. But I talked to the pastor about it, and I talked to the guy from RIM about it, and he said this brings in non-believers. This brings in people because they're talking about the Avengers or whatever, some non-Christian movie. The only one that I saw that Lori and I were there for, they were talking about Jesus Revolution, so that was an easy one. But they talked about secular movies. I think they even did Top Gun one time, and pointing out how these worldly people, these people that are writing this movie, producing this movie, directing this movie, may not even be Christians. Tom Cruise is not a Christian, but God is working through these non-believers to show the message if we're looking for it. So what about the gifts of the Magi? The Magi bring 3 gifts, and people assume that because there's 3 gifts that there's only 3 Magi. That's not in the Bible either. It just says wise men from the east. There could have been a dozen, a couple dozen, 100, we don't know. We just know that there were Magi, that there were a lot of them because they made enough of an impression that they got before the king when they showed up. So they showed up, they looked important enough to get before the king. And there were at least 2 because the word Magi is plural. The word there's magos, I think is the Greek word for Magi, which just means it can be used as magician, it can be used as wise men, and then Magi is the plural form of that. So as we wrap up today, I want to look at these 3 gifts and the significance of them. The first one is gold. And throughout history, gold has represented royalty. In Babylon, it was a symbol of wealth and power, and it was worn by royalty, and it was kept in the royal treasury. It wasn't really circulated. They didn't use it as currency. Gold is a gift. Gold as a gift to a king is an obvious choice for the Magi to bring. It's recognizing who they thought was going to be in the palace as king. They were bringing this as to honor him as king. They bring it to Jesus, and they're honoring him as king. But there's another use for gold that we see in the Old Testament. The Bible uses the refining of gold as an illustration of removing sin from our lives. The process of purifying gold is heating it up to extremely high temperatures so that the impurities float to the top and they can be scraped off. And this high temperature is the testing that God puts us through. And the impurities, of course, are the sin and the things in our life that we need to get rid of, kind of like what we talked about in the first week of this month, of pulling the rocks out of the bucket. God uses the testing and the heat and to bring these to the surface so that we can remove these. But it's also used in the temple. We see in the description of the tabernacle and the temple that the altar was covered in gold. The Ark of the Covenant was covered in gold. The tools used for the sacrifices were covered in gold. The walls of the temple were covered in gold. The gold also represents the sacrifice that Jesus would ultimately make. The frankincense is this white resin or this gum that we get from a tree. You tap a tree, certain kinds of trees, kind of like you would tap a maple tree to get maple syrup out of it. And then it dries, and it's crushed, and it's used for this really expensive perfume. And it's used for other things too, but in the Bible, it was used for perfume. It's also used in the incense that's burned in the temple during sacrifices. As we see the angel appearing to Zechariah. He's burning this incense. That's his job for the day, is he's burning incense at the temple in the holy place right outside the Holy of Holies when the angel appears to him. The recipe for this incense included pure frankincense. And then we go on to see Zechariah's son, John the Baptist, call Jesus the Lamb of God who would take away the sin of the world. Lambs used in Jewish sacrifices for sin were just a temporary fix. Jesus came as a permanent solution for those who believe and follow him. Frankincense was used as as an anointing oil, the expensive perfume that Mary, not Mary his mother, but Mary the sister of Lazarus, pours on his head and his feet, would have probably been made from frankincense. I don't think it actually says, but it would have probably, if it talks about an expensive perfume, it's believed that it was made from this frankincense. So frankincense is, it's used in sacrifice to represent Jesus' sacrifice. It was also used in anointing. So it is anointing him as king, and as, we see priests and we see kings anointed in the Old Testament. So this is also used in the anointing oil.
Do you remember the common name today for frankincense? I know the health food stores can tell you, I can't remember what it is.
As far as I know, it's still considered frankincense, and it's actually being used.
What it's made from, I can't remember, but I know I've researched that, and it's really strange. We have frankincense.
Yeah, frankincense is still made. The trees still grow, and they're still using frankincense today. In the study of this, I found that they're actually using frankincense or studying frankincense to see if it has a cure for cancer, if it attacks cancer cells.
Not to interject, sorry. What's interesting too, we talked about it a while back when we were talking about preparation for burial. And we were talking about how they presented, we talked about Mary having, breaking that, and that's something that all of their lives, Jewish people would save up and basically prepare themselves with this anointing oil for burial. It was part of their deal. And so for Joseph of Arimathea to give his for Jesus' burial was
It was actually Nicodemus that brought it.
Yeah.
75
Yeah,
pounds.
That's right. It was Nicodemus. Sorry.
Yeah. It
So
was actually the guy, the Pharisee, that came to Jesus to say, hey, help me understand this.
Yeah, so it's interesting that Nicodemus would bring that. Sorry, not Joseph.
Yeah.
And so I've always, as I've read this, I wonder if, of course, if this bringing frankincense was, especially for a king, customary to give such a gift for something that would be prepared for their burial at one point, which, of course, you're talking about Jesus, is very interesting.
Yeah.
Then he had to start over for his own self.
Right.
It's saving up.
And then the myrrh is another resin. It comes from a different kind of tree. It's taken the same kind of way. They get the sap, they dry it out, and it's used as perfumes and antiseptics. In Matthew 15, we see that they give a mixture of myrrh and wine, and they soak a sponge and they hold it up to Jesus as he's dying on the cross. That was to relieve the pain that Jesus is feeling on the cross, to help him relax so that he would die quicker. I'm sorry. The myrrh is actually in the 75
Yeah, I just saw
pounds.
that too, yeah.
It wasn't the frankincense. It was the myrrh
Right.
that Nicodemus brought. There was the 75 pounds of myrrh and aloe that he brought for the burial.
Yeah.
So the Magi probably had no idea the symbolisms that these gifts would have, as far as, they knew the significance of it as far as, we're honoring a king by bringing these expensive, valuable gifts. But they probably had no idea the significance of them as far as the sacrifice that Jesus would ultimately make. That he would be the Lamb of God to take away our sins. That the lambs that were sacrificed in the temple never could have been. They were highly valuable. They were more than likely sold and used to fund the trip to Egypt. Because we see that Joseph and Mary, they didn't have a lot of money. When they present the offering for Mary's purification, they couldn't afford the lamb. They had to go with the less expensive offering of 2 doves. But the star stops over their house. So when it stops over their house, I would assume that the wise men were probably still looking for a palace. Okay, this isn't the palace that he wasn't in Jerusalem, in the capital. But I assume that he would. They're probably still looking for a palace, or at least a very nice house. And it stops over probably this very modest, humble house that Joseph and Mary were in. And I'm sure they're questioning. There had to have been some sort of question as, is this really the place? This doesn't seem like the place that we would find a king. But they go in, and if the star stops here, the God that we have learned about from Daniel says this is the place, this is what we've got to do. They go in, they acknowledge him as king, and they bow down and they worship. And they left these gifts that, these were probably worth more than what Joseph probably would have made in multiple years. It really took an act of faith on the wise men's part. I really feel like something changed within the wise men in this. Maybe it's just hope, but I really hope that they went back and something changed in them, and they had a belief in the God that Daniel had told them about, to recognize him as the one true God, to believe in this Messiah, and hopefully to have gone back and looked into this some more. But the main point is this: the Magi represent us. The story of Jesus focuses on the Israelites because he came to save them first. Paul says that salvation came first to the Jews, then to the Gentiles. He came to bring them back to God so that they could be the light to the nations that God told Abraham his people would be. But even in the beginning of Jesus' story, we see Gentiles like the wise men, guided to Jesus through the Holy Spirit to worship something that they don't even understand. Gentiles just like us. We see it throughout Jesus' life. Roman soldiers and centurions and officers. We see even, the woman at the well who was a Samaritan. Gentiles recognizing Jesus as a Messiah and becoming the beginning of us being able to come to Jesus, that message being spread to the Gentiles. So Christmas is less than 3 days away, as we've said. And the tradition of giving gifts comes from these gifts that the Magi brought to Jesus. So what gift, it's Jesus' birthday. What gift do we bring him? We're supposed to be celebrating him, and we give each other gifts. Shouldn't we give Jesus a gift? What can we give him to show him how much we love him and appreciate what he's done for us? Jesus tells us, we get Jesus' Christmas wish list in John 14:15. He says, if you love me, keep my commands. The crazy part is that he goes even further than this, and he says, and I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to help you and be with you forever, the Spirit of truth. Giving Jesus the only thing that he really wants, just keeping his commandments, comes with us getting a gift that really helps us give him the gift. This is the equivalent of telling your kids, this is what I want for Christmas. And then driving them to the store and giving them the money and helping them carry the gift actually to the register and paying for it in the whole 9 yards, and then opening it up and, oh, thanks, this is exactly what I wanted. Jesus gives us the Holy Spirit to guide us into keeping his commandments. And I just think that's fascinating. So in the midst of the presents and the gathering with the friends and family and all the great things that come with Christmas, take a moment and just stop and thank Jesus for the best gift ever. Jesus being a path to redemption with God and sending the Holy Spirit to guide us down this path, for us to give us a path where we were enemies because of our sin. We were enemies with God because of our sin. We had no way of doing this on our own, no way to reconcile ourselves with God on our own. God sent Jesus to be that ultimate sacrifice, to pay for our sins so that we can, just by believing him, just through faith and keeping his commandments, like he said, if we truly love him, if we really are trying to be in a relationship with him and know him, we do that through the Holy Spirit, through his guidance, and through relying on him through the hard times and even in the good times. So if you've got family or friends that don't know Jesus, I think Christmas is the best time to share that with them, to show them what God has really done for us through this Then Jesus came to them and said,